Hello and welcome to the Top Corner Podcast, episode number 23 of our podcast show. It is going to be a little bit of a shorter edition today, purely because one, there's no league still, and two, quite frankly, we're running out of ideas. Honestly, it's a tough situation right now. We are in the long haul, of course, of the coronavirus, which is unfortunately the main talking point of today. But joining me, as always, for the podcast, we have Kieran L. He's got his camera on, as always. Yeah. Nice to see you. Kieran D, with a picture of McTominay against, I'm guessing that's the Manchester City goal.
Of
course. And we've got Rowan as the guy from Trapped.
The caretaker from Trapped, thank you.
We love it. There we go. So welcome one and all. Thanks for joining me today, as always, on the podcast. Chris Welch is already in the stream. He's here already. Hi, lads. Hope you're well. And Bernaldo, before we'd even started the podcast, dedicated to the cause, he's put Bernaldo's Bundesliga bonanza. Wonder how all this pans out in the other leagues. We love to see Bernaldo, as always. It's a fun time for everybody, because we now actually have some official information about one of the leagues coming back in the next couple of days. We've got the Bundesliga right now, which is coming back in the next couple of days. So hopefully we should be back in about a week or two. So fingers crossed. Who knows? Is it actually going to come back in time, guys? Because apparently it was supposed to come back this weekend. Now it was saying next weekend. Then it's saying the weekend after. Is it actually going to come back now? There's a green light.
Are they waiting for a release date from Angela Merkel?
It's supposed to be. They've got the government green light now. That was today, and the German government are tomorrow sorting out. The official date of when it's supposed to come back.
I'd like to believe it's going to come back as soon as I want it to. But the pessimist in me is saying I want to see it confirmed in a date that's locked in before I start making. I don't want to get my hopes up for football coming back in 2 weeks' time, and then the moment it's about to come back, this bit's come up and they can't do it this week, and then we'll just slowly put it back. And I'm just not willing to put myself through that pain.
Well, that was the worry, because there was the news that came out. I don't know if anybody saw. There was a couple of staff members at Cologne that had apparently contracted coronavirus, and this was only a couple of days ago. Of course, there's no official context of whether they previously had it and they still got it, or whether they've only just recently got it. So it's the little things like that can affect whether this league comes back or not. But there's a part of me that just wants to stick on the song "I'm So Excited" and start dancing around, counting down the days until the Bundesliga comes back.
I'd pay to see that.
Yeah.
Go on then. I'll do it at the end. Actually, I'll tell you what. The next podcast, if we have official date, I'll do it. So, of course, in today's show, as I said, it is going to be a little bit of a shorter edition. We are going to look through the 5 main leagues, kind of give you an update on the situation of how things are going for each respective league. There's probably going to be a little bit of a debate. Let you guys get involved in the comments below. Of course, we'll always try and answer as many of yours questions and comments as we possibly can. And as I said, we're just going to really talk about the whole situation in general. I think for us, it's been a couple of weeks since we've actually really talked about what's been going on. So a lot has changed in the meantime. Chris Welch has come up straight away. I may not watch Bundesliga, but it's something to watch. So I'll watch likes of Bayern Munich, Dortmund and Leipzig.
It's the best league in the world.
I think it's the most fun. I do think it's the most fun. Bernaldo has put, I'm curious about how those with it in their system, like Tammy Abrahams and their eligibility. Also, if Liga and the Eredivisie retract their early finishings of leagues.
I don't
of course. It's a tricky one. I think one of the first ones we should go to is Liga in a moment's time. But what were you going to say, Kieran?
This is where the problem lies now, because we've got different. There's no streamlined. This is what we're going to do. It's been this league's gone and done its own. Well, this is what happened when. What did you say? The person that kind of went, was it the FA that just kind of went, well, sort it out, or you want to sort it out? That's not going to work, because you look at lower leagues of English football, they're not allowed to carry on, and the League 1 and League 2 is being decided soon. You've got Liga not coming back, Eredivisie not coming back, whereas the Bundesliga, they're going to play out the season. So how do teams in Ligue 1 feel, and teams in the Eredivisie feel that they're not allowed to play it out, but the Bundesliga is? That's why we should have had one streamlined set of rules.
The problem is every country's different. Every country's coronavirus is bigger. Ours is very serious. Germany somehow, because they're the Germans and they're efficient, somehow sort of
They just locked down
Not
straight
because-
away, didn't they?
Yeah, it's still around, but they somehow managed to contain it so much quicker than we did, which allows them to do this. Like,
I think they were worried as well in Germany, especially. I agree with you guys. Of course, every place is realistically different in their approach to how they've gone with the coronavirus. Exactly as you guys said, Germany did the right thing straight away and went, right, we've seen a spike in cases. We will just close everything and we'll do a lockdown. And they were worried that there was going to be a second spike, especially about, I think it was around a week ago. They started seeing cases go up, but it's actually gone down again quite recently. So they're in a much better position than the rest of them. And I think the first major league that is worth talking about is the biggest European league out of the top 5 that has cancelled so far. We didn't really talk about it when it happened on the 28th of April, but it was announced by the French Prime Minister, that Ligue 1 and Ligue 2 will not be able to start, as all sporting events are banned until September in France. Now, of course, it's a very complex situation. I think you'll have seen, no doubt, all of the news. There are a lot of different teams that are already putting in lawsuits and things like that. So, for example, the Lyon owner, he's already put a lawsuit in. He's also come up with a 23-page guide of how to restart the league efficiently. That's how dedicated these club owners and just clubs in general are. They want the leagues to continue. And the question is, well, exactly, you leave yourself in a position where it's a very, very tight league, Ligue 1. You know, you've got to think, only a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about this league and there was maybe 6 or 7 points between 8 or 9 clubs in the middle of the table. And it could be the difference between Europa League and Champions League. And it's proving that. And I wanted to ask you, because this is the biggest league that has cancelled so far, is there any way back for Ligue 1 in any remote way to, 1, restart the season, and 2, to keep the competitive nature of the competition up, considering they can just cancel the league like that and give PSG the title?
I don't think you can say they can just cancel the league like in a click of fingers, because it's unfortunate what's happened with the virus, especially. But I don't think they could, if something like this was to happen again, I don't think they'd take the same approach.
I think overall, it surprised me that France were the first, considering how bad it was in Italy. Compared to, I heard a lot more about how bad Italy was than how bad France was. I think they maybe made the decision a little too hastily, in my opinion. Like the moment it said, their immediate reaction was just cancel it until next year, just to be on the safe side. So I think they went with, the case scenario that has the least risk involved. If you close everything down, nothing's going to happen. Therefore, say if Ligue 1 reopened and then the cases spiked, everyone would go, this is the worst run league in the world.
Yeah.
So they just went with the least risk option, which was close everything down. But I think they were a bit hasty, considering it's been a couple of weeks now and no one else has closed down in terms of top leagues apart from Eredivisie.
They'd rather take the flack than having could possibly worse publicity. Take the worst publicity now, rather than risking it in the future, is what it's all about, really.
Well, for France, they are easing the lockdown situation on the 11th of May. As far as I'm aware, they're still sticking to the idea of slowly starting to ease things out, as are other countries. Germany have already eased down. Apparently, supposedly here, they're looking to ease some of the lockdown restrictions by Monday. Italy, do you know anything about Italy, Roman? A bit more?
Italy have reduced lockdown, and they've had, for the 4th straight day, they've had reduced cases.
Which is great to see. I mean, you think, exactly as you said before, Italy was one of the worst hit countries across the world for this coronavirus incident. And I do think, I think you guys could agree, we probably haven't actually heard much about France in this coronavirus situation. They've been very, very quiet, I think, compared to, we've heard a lot about Italy, we've heard a lot about Spain, and we've heard, of course, a lot about England in terms of cases and that. But I do feel like we don't hear much about France and how they've worked on the coronavirus. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, as you say, that's why I was surprised when they were. If I could have picked, if I could have, threw a dart at a board and said, who do I think would be the first to go and abandon the league? I thought Serie A, by the way Italy were, the way so crazy. I just think they rushed to a decision to put themselves in the safest position not to not to blow anything, not to make situations even worse. Just shut it down and then it won't get any worse.
I'm guessing you mean kind of like the idea of rather than just saying if, but, or maybe, just say done. That's it. So then you're not giving anybody false hope.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because if they know, if they shut it down now, there is no if, buts, or maybes about the league. It's, they've made the decision now, and then it's been made. It's like, one thing I think football fans are in a bit of, it's the same when we were talking about the Bundesliga earlier. We're all in a bit of limbo about what dates it coming back. So there's so many unknowns. Whereas in France, they just went scrap the unknowns and just leave it for a year, and we'll come back next year.
Well,
I've got a couple of comments as well. Will has joined us, by the way. Welcome, Will. He says Trap was a great show.
It was amazing show.
What were you going to say, Rome, before that?
Well, if you look at the French league, that's all. The place, not place to set out, but PSG, Marseille, and Rennes are all in the top three. Lille are fourth. The only team you feel sorry for are Lille because they're only 1 point behind Rennes, which means 1 point is nothing. Whereas, Nice and Reims are on 41 points, so 8 points behind Lille. There is a clear point difference between the teams, apart from the Champions League, Europa League. But if you were them, you'd still be happy that you've at least got a European spot rather than the league being void completely and it's chosen by previous record.
Which perfectly comes on to the point of the Eredivisie. I mean, somebody's already just put Chris Welch's, but I don't agree with any league being ended early, gifting titles away. Don't agree with Dutch League. Of course, the Dutch League have completely cancelled the league in general. There's no relegation, there's no promotion, no winners. So, for example, Ajax and AZ Alkmaar were both, as far as I'm aware, it was either they were both on the same points or Alkmaar was 1 point behind Ajax. It was that tight at the top in terms of the title. They've just completely scrapped the league in general and said there's no winners, no losers, no one. That's it. And of course, the one issue, which we'll talk a little bit about later on, is the Champions League. But with it being one of the biggest leagues in world football, realistically speaking, in terms of its notoriety for its former players of the past and the present and that, it leaves a big hole, a big gaping hole of how do you fix a problem of you've said the league is off, but you're apparently going to give out Champions League places based on the current positions. It's tricky.
When I was looking at the league, I'm pretty sure Utrecht have missed out. I can't remember if it was Utrecht or it was a team that has missed out on European football because they were 3 points behind, but they had a game in hand. So if they won the game in hand, if they're going off them positions, they would have been in. But also, I do want to credit, we sometimes maybe look at it from the point of a fan's perspective, but we do need to give them a little bit of slack because this was unprecedented. This was not foreseen. They're having to make decisions on the fly, and they're all they're trying to do what they think is best. So I do want to give a little bit of cut them a little bit of slack, even though as a football fan, I want to see leagues stick to a certain set of rules. But no one could have seen this coming, so I kind of want to give them a little bit of they're trying their best, really.
I'd also like to shout out to ADO Den Haag because they were sitting on 19th points, whereas I'm going to butcher the name, IKC Waalwijk were on 15. Alan Pardew, the legend, keeping them up.
And then he left afterwards, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think.
But if you look at the Eredivisie second, the Eerste Divisie, Cambuur are on 66 points and De Graafschap are on 62.
Are they ahead against, how far are they ahead against the rest of the league?
Well, there is a 7 points difference between De Graafschap and then third. And then in the promotion playoffs, Almere and Telstar miss out by 1 point.
It just doesn't affect the big league itself. It affects the leagues below massively. Massively. Chris has put, for me, you can't end the league early or completely cancel when you've got too many implications, like the Dutch league title race or Ligue 1. While Bernardo says France is known for an early surrender.
Oh,
history. He's getting a joke in there nice and early. But of course, as I said, Ligue 1 and Eredivisie, I think, are the two leagues right now in the most difficult situation of the fact they now have to sort out the Champions League for next season. Of course, Ligue 1 have gone down the route and said, of course, give the title to PSG and the league will stick exactly as it is. So wherever you are now, you'll get a position, which I will give credit. Well done to Stade de Reims. They are now in the Europa League for the first time in their history. Of course, this is their first. They've never been under the top 10, and they've only been up for, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. So it's a massive, massive jump for them. And of course, well done to Stade Rennes as well. They're now in the Champions League for the first time in a long, long time as well. If the title, the top stays as it is. But we're going to move on from Ligue 1. Yeah,
What do you mean by Stade de Reims? They're 6th.
Stade de Reims, they're still in the Europa League.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they've still got a Europa League spot. I think it's the top 4 go in the Champions League, and I think it's 5th and 6th.
Top 3 go Champions League.
Is it
4th
4?
goes Europa League.
Yeah.
There we go. I think does one get a playoff spot? Or,
It doesn't say here on Sky Sports. It just says 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Champions League, 4th Europa League relegation, 19th and 20th.
There you go. I mean, the relegation spots in Ligue 1, I think, are pretty much nearly justified. I think Toulouse, they put in a court case. They wanted to start a court case, but I think they're about 12 points off survival. If I'm correct,
14. Amiens
14.
are 4.
So
Survival.
it's conflicting. I mean, Benaldo put it perfectly that no matter what happens, Chris put this. No matter what happens, every team. Every league is always going to have a team that is not going to be happy with the situation in general, no matter what you choose. And I mean, we're going to move over from Italy to France. I mean, there's developing news in France in terms of now Sassuolo are the first side to go back into... Italy. First side to go back into training. Of course, we know Italy was one of the worst hit places for all the coronavirus, and they now decided to go back into training for the first time in quite some time. Of course, we haven't had any proper news yet from Serie A if the league is going to continue, or this is just a case of let's get some training in so the players are still fit and not just stuck at home. Of course, Serie A, we had our last game, which was in the Champions League between Atalanta and Valencia, which feels like God knows how long ago. I think this is going to be one that takes the longest to decide what happens. Do you think Serie A will come back this season, or do you think that this is going to be one of the second big leagues to call off the rest of the season?
No, I think it will come back. Like we mentioned earlier, they've eased the lockdown. The rates are dropping. The rates are dropping everywhere, which is really good to see.
Apart from us.
No, our rates dropped again.
We've just gone past 30,000 deaths. 30,000 deaths.
I mean, the rate of deaths are dropping though. Like I'm pretty sure Boris said that this morning in the house.
I'm just reading through the because the briefing's currently happening, and they said by newspapers, UK death toll passes 30,000. The daily tests have already gone down as well, but they said the construction work's going to be the first to come back.
If we're going on Italy though, the only reason I have faith that it comes back is because surely it would have been cancelled by now. With the way league, with how many players got it within this, I swear to God, the Juventus 11 got it, right? And then surely at that point they would have gone, it's probably not safe to come back. If they've left it this long, I think they might as well just go, we might as well finish it now.
In fact, you only have to think as well, Sassuolo were actually one of the last teams to play a Serie A game. They were one of the final sides, and I think it was one of their players scored one of the goals. You might have seen the picture of him holding up his shirt. He'd got everybody stay safe, stay indoors on his T-shirt at the time. And a couple of their players had actually picked up coronavirus because of the situation of the game being played. And they're one of the first sides to come out. The one good piece of news to add to your point, Kieran L, is that Serie A had a vote quite recently on how they wanted what they wanted to do if the league was going to come out. Did they want them to scrap it? Did they want them to do no relegation, no promotion? All 20 teams voted to just play out the rest of the season. Not one of them decided to call it off.
I've got a feeling that's the consensus around the world in terms of the footballing clubs. I've not seen one club, apart from the teams in the Premier League that have underperformed, for example, Harry Kane and Spurs, just because his team's done shit. He's gone, I think we should scrap the league. Yeah, but that's because you're rubbish. It's not,
Yeah.
But then you have to look as well. The Scottish leagues had a lot of problems quite recently regarding the situation of cancelling it or not, because you'll have heard, I think this was about a week or two ago, I know it started to die down a little bit, that a couple of teams had voted for the season to continue, as you would expect. Some teams voted for the league to finish. And in fact, this has actually happened in Eredivisie as well. And apparently the Scottish Prem had tried to include the teams that just said So they had three options basically. Continue the season was option 1. End the season as it is and everybody stays in the positions was option 2. And option 3 was to just avoid the season, call it all off, nothing counts. The option 3 and 2 had more votes collectively than option 1. And they tried to kind of rig it. So they merged options 2 and 3 together and said that option 3 had more votes. Bit dodgy, if I say so myself. And it's the same with the Eredivisie. Apparently, they'd gone down a similar route in terms of the options available. More teams had voted for the season to like options 2 and 3. And once again, they just went to the option of, right, that's it. We'll just cancel everything. It's very dodgy.
I think the reason that teams are voting, I know obviously Scotland and Eredivisie are a bit of a thing, but like in the other leagues, most people are saying, let's finish it behind closed doors, because I think teams want to own their destiny, and so they want to own how the season, like how their season finishes. For example, if you're fighting relegation, you want the chance to, you want one of two things: scrap it and no one gets relegated, because then we don't have to put the effort in and we survive. Which, to be honest, with the position my team's in, I don't mind not playing another game because we would probably have gone down anyway. So that's probably mine. But also, as I say, people want the chance to, like Toulouse, for example, they want the chance to go like and keep up. But that's just the competitiveness, I think, in some of the teams.
If you look at the Serie A, let's say they do decide to end the league now and the places are where they're going to be, like as finished. So you top 4 get Champions League. So Juventus, Lazio, Inter Milan, and Atalanta all get Champions League. Roma and Napoli both get Europa League, and then in relegation, Lecce, Spal, and Brescia get relegated. The problem there is Genoa are on 25 points, so are Lecce. Lecce are on 25. They're joint points. Lecce are only in relegation because of goal difference. Sampdoria are on 26. They've got the same goal difference as Genoa. Also, Genoa need is a draw, and Sampdoria lose, and Genoa will more than likely will be more safe. You look at the thing, AC Milan are only 3 points off Napoli. Like, you get to a problem where teams won't be happy because it's only a win and a loss. Like, it can all change in one game. Like, some other game, the same with Roma and Atalanta, there's 3 points separating them. That's for a Champions League spot. Like, teams are obviously going to want to play these games because they want to secure these spots.
And it's humongous money for clubs. The difference between Europa League money and Champions League money is humongous. A couple of questions have come in. Sorry, do you want to? I'll let you put your part.
Paulo Dybala has been now cleared and cured of the coronavirus.
Until tomorrow when he gets it again. Has he had it like 5 or 6 times now?
3 times.
3. I did see
crazy.
Sorry to interrupt you. In Israel, doctors have already made a vaccine.
Get them over here.
Didn't you say that in Canada, though?
Yeah,
I swear Canada made something.
Canada were testing them. Israel have made the vaccine now, and they are starting to share it with other countries. I'm pretty sure I read.
Didn't they test it on monkeys, and they give them 10, and then they put the 10 like coronavirus things in them, and they all came back healthy? I think
very similar to that, yeah.
But in terms of what you were saying, Josh, about the money, think about, for example, Rotherham. Right, the TV rights money between League One and Championship is massive. I know it's not a lot in the Championship, but still, it's a lot for a club.
It's a hell of a lot.
Think about the teams in the Championship. There's a reason they call the playoffs the £100 million game, because that's how much it's worth, because of how much the TV right goes up. So as much as I hate Leeds, and to be honest, just scrap the league now as long as they don't go up. But for other teams, like that is a massive. That is their money. That's how they stay in profit. So
exactly.
I do agree with that.
It's a crazy, crazy situation. Loads of comments. Thank you guys for all the comments today. Chris has put, what's your lads' thoughts on Premier League potentially scrapping relegation because some teams don't like the idea of playing at neutral venues? I say tough relegation is part of the game.
I mean, the thing is about that is everyone's going to be playing at a neutral venue. So it's going to be fair play for anybody. It's just like playing an FA Cup semi-final.
Exactly.
What would be the neutral venue? I don't get it. What do you mean?
So basically, they're looking at venues in which
teams that are playing.
Yeah.
So either team would be home or away.
Oh right. All right.
But I did hear something about Emirates Stadium was apparently supposed to be one of these neutral venues, which sounds absolutely ridiculous because it does give Arsenal an advantage. I mean, whether it be a case of Arsenal never played there and they just used Emirates Stadium as a venue because they can, then that's understandable.
Surely if you're going to use neutral venues, right, but then you use Arsenal's home ground, Chelsea's home ground, why don't they just play at home and then everyone can play at home? Because that's what they're doing anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it from the situation that they'll probably pick 10 neutral venues that are quite tightly packed and close by, rather than saying, the Manchester teams can play at their respective clubs while the London clubs can play. Because I guess if you're telling all the players to go across the country again, you're putting them at risk.
What if, like, they split the country up? So Newcastle, any teams that are in there's only Newcastle with the north, like above us, above Yorkshire, aren't there? I can't think of any others.
I think, they're the most north club in the league.
If they're not playing a neutral, they have to come all the way down to probably Manchester or Sheffield. Like, I feel like a neutral, but I think the travelling, it could work. Maybe if you say only the London teams are allowed to play in London, but then you've still got teams travelling, going to different places. Like, it's risky. It's very risky.
I just think their idea is kind of, let's say, we'll pick 10 neutral venues in London that they can use, and all the clubs come to London, keep them close and tightly packed so you're not having people far away in different parts of the country, keep them together, and it might be worse grounds that they're playing in. You've got Arsenal, Chelsea, let's say they bring in the QPR because, of course, if the EFL does get cancelled, it's going to be a free stadium to use. QPR, Fulham, all the clubs like that, they can, I'd say, potentially ask to use them as neutral venues. I couldn't see why not. I think that's the idea. Exactly. As long as the game's being played, I think the public would be more than happy. The players would be happy because they're on the pitch doing what they love and enjoy, and the whole competition in general gets to continue on as normal. I mean, Will's put, what annoys me is that we say the UK went into lockdown, even though people are allowed to leave their houses and do everything normally. As long as people leave their house, the virus will never go. And then Will's also added, just swap stadiums per club that are close. Example, in London, Tottenham play at the Emirates, Arsenal at Tottenham's, West Ham play at the Den, Millwall play at the Olympic Stadium. I could see riots happening if that was to happen.
To be honest, Josh, I like your idea of almost like an Olympic village.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think their idea is in the head.
But, because if you get one case, say it does come back up and you've kept them all in this tight knit, one person gets it, hell breaks loose. That's the only problem I see with that.
And I think you've got to look at the situation that I think no matter what they do, you will always have a little but or if situation that could come into the fold. As I said before, if they just kind of kept it as normal and it was 10 neutral venues across the country, you still have the risk of the coronavirus going to somebody as they're travelling across the country. But Chris has put, these stupid small teams saying gives other teams an advantage. How does it when no fans will be there?
Because it is somewhere, it's a pitch you're familiar with, isn't it?
It's home, isn't it, for them?
Yeah.
I agree, Rowan, because people say Wembley is the big, in terms of it's a massive pitch. I guess some grounds are smaller, and I agree with what you're saying, Rowan. People will be used to what they play on. And that's why it's called home, I guess. It's fans, but also pitch.
This is going to be hard to me personally. I think they should cancel all football leagues because of that. Just because, let's say, Chelsea play Stoke, they won't. I just couldn't think of a team. Let's say Chelsea play another Premier League team. Tammy Abraham has had it before. Let's say he re-gets it somehow. He plays a game. He infects someone. They don't know they've got it. They're going to play another game. It just creates an innocent football circle of coronavirus. Surely.
They did say though that they're gonna test people at the grounds, at the things. They're gonna test everybody that enters the ground is going to be tested.
I'll tell you what, I was going to say that because I was looking yesterday, and the UFC are obviously getting back on their feet now, and what they're doing during fight week, I can't remember. I'm trying to find the tweet from Ariel Helwani, but I can't find it. Basically, they're testing everyone daily. So if they did have this sort of village that they have, test everyone daily, and there's this antibody test that comes back within minutes, and I'm just going to try and find the tweet now, so I'll get it to you if I can find it.
While you find that, we'll very just quickly talk
I
about.
found it.
Oh, you got it! Boom! Just like that. That was quick.
No, I know it's not football, it's UFC, but if you think all fighters are staying in one hotel, we'll talk about this Olympic Village situation. So basically, they get tested for the COVID-19 upon arriving, and the results come back in 24 hours. So you'd be able to tell with footballers within 24 hours whether they've got it. And they also get an antibody test, which determines if they've already had COVID-19, and then results come back in minutes. So there is a way to do it efficiently and quickly. It just takes a day.
That's what they did with. I feel like that's what they did with the Bundesliga teams, because obviously, like Josh said, one of the Cologne members of staff had it. They did say, I remember reading somewhere that they were going to test people before the match and then after the match, and then so something like that. They were going to test every single person that came into contact with the stadium, even the people that work at the stadium, the people that work behind the scenes for the club, the players, the staff, anything like that. They were going to test everybody, and just. I suppose if we want the leagues to go on, that is the only way they can do it.
Sure, the easiest thing would be allow 11 players, 5 subs, the manager, assistant manager, and the medic. I can't remember, what's the name? Allowing them in and having basically as limited personnel as you need there, and having your 3 referees, and that is it.
Yeah, they have to strip it down somehow, because it's literally like the moment we ease lockdown, life's not going to go back to the way it was like that. It will take 6 months to a year for everything to go back to relative normal.
Well,
I think football. Go on, carry on.
No, sorry. I was going to say, we're not going to have full stadiums until next year for sure.
Not a chance. And I do think in terms of personnel, I agree. In terms of we won't have as many people there. They won't have. Do you know when you used to look behind when you look on a bench of a football team, you've got the physio, the kit man, the guy who runs attack and whatever else. You don't need all them people. I don't think you will have all them people.
No.
Yeah, it's a very frustrating situation because there's so many implications to it. I just thought I'd take the screen off a second and just have a look at the comments. TSC Benaldo thinks that Stadium of Light would be a nice one to use as a neutral venue. Chris has put, in my opinion, if the season can't continue, leave standings as it is. Bottom 3 go down, top 3 of the Championship go up. Bournemouth, Villa, Norwich being worst teams in the league. The problem is games in hand still need to. And it comes back to the point we were talking about earlier. Of course, the Premier League right now, we have Sheffield United, who have a very, very vital game in hand, where if they were to win that game, they would actually be in the Champions League, which at the beginning of the season would have been unheard of, but now it really plays into the hands of it could really be the difference for a club of that. They're a very minuscule club in terms of value compared to the rest of the league. A Champions League spot would be humongous for a club of that quality.
Us talking about it, I think me and Kieran and Josh are lucky because we don't support Premier League teams, but you said it should stay as the top 3 and top 3, but that's Chris Welch is a Liverpool fan with Buller first. If you look at the bottom 3, Bournemouth would be quite unjust to go down. They're on the same points as Watford and West Ham. They're on the because the goal difference, there's only 1 goal difference separating these both teams. If Bournemouth go down, it is unjust. Because they're on the same points.
We're saying about Sheffield United having that game in hand. Aston Villa have got a game in hand as well, and if they win, they'll go to 16th.
Yeah, I agree. You can't end it because I'm sorry, a season like this for Sheffield United, this is Leicester winning the league all over again.
When it's 3 years ago. Sorry, when it 3 years ago they were in League One, or 4 years ago.
It was 3 years ago they were in League One. And exactly as you said, this will never happen again for Sheffield United.
A season like this can't go to waste. They have put so much. They deserve to finish where they've earned where they've finished. And I know it's it's the same with Liverpool. They have dominated so easily. They were on the cusp of going unbeaten all year. Yes, they got beat by Watford, but it was in pretty much touching distance. They were going to win the league in 2 games. You can't have a season of domination. Just go, sorry lads. Didn't mean anything after all this. It's a bit...
Exactly.
I've got a question for Kieran D. So obviously, if Sheffield do win this game in hand, they go above you. Now, as a United fan, you would probably rather see the league finish now, wouldn't you, for Europa League? But do you think it'd be fair? I'm sort of asking as a United fan.
If the league finished?
If the league finished now, because you would get your Europa League spot.
No, it's not fair.
I was wanted to know...
I hold my hands up as a Man United fan and said, yeah, I'd love it if it ended, because that means Liverpool won't win the league. And we'd get thingy. But as a fan of football, I'd like to see the league finished. I like to watch my team play football. I like to watch football in general.
Right,
I'd like to see the other 10-9 games of the season finished, and then we have a fair representation of where everyone finished.
I think Sheffield United's game in hand is against Villa, if I'm correct, which is big for both teams, isn't it? Like, do you just play that game and then end it there? And then that's unfair form. Then that's
one single game out of all of them.
See, can you imagine if it ended as a boring 0-0 draw? Both teams would be absolutely gutted.
25 points behind.
I mean, Benaldo's part, I'd be gutted to see Wolves and Sheffield United's FS cut short as a Spurs fan. They've both been excellent this season. While Will's put, eventually things will have to resume. Unfortunately, people will always dive it, and nothing can be done unless they find a cure.
But Will did also put a good point earlier that he put it's just like the flu, but the rates of death of the flu don't get reported, whereas COVID-19 does get reported. It's about the media, in my opinion, anyway. Of course, it's horrible to have this illness in the world and have it affect in our country, but he has got a point when he says the flu deaths don't get reported.
I think it's very true in respect, but I think you have to look as well at the amount of people that have unfortunately died from it and the percentage of the rate of deaths to the rate of people that have actually had it. And I think if you look in the UK, how many have passed? Did you say 30,000?
30,000.
And how many have had it?
200,000 plus.
It's a hell of a lot of people. 200,000 plus sounds like 30,000 sounds a very small amount to 200,000, but I mean, you put it down to a percentage, you're looking towards nearly 15+% of people have passed away because of it, which is it's very unfortunate. But we're going to take a very short, quick moment to talk about The Athletic, which you can join today, as always. You can join a world-class bunch of writers, including Raphael Honigstein, which will be getting underway very shortly with some brand new Bundesliga pieces if the season goes ahead. Oliver Kay is also on there, and a whole host of other ones, including Phil Hay for Leeds United. You can join us today on The Athletic. Get yourself 50% off your annual subscription, as well as a 7-day free trial using the link theathletic.co.uk/sportscorner. I would highly recommend it. They've had loads of content recently, including a piece about ITV, who made a big money deal about 15 years ago and then never gave the money to clubs. How did it affect clubs 15 years ago when the money didn't come through? It's 15 years ago, but it really does link to the situation now in terms of cash-strapped clubs. So I'd really recommend reading it. They've got loads of the sports on there. theathletic.co.uk/sportscorner. The link is in the description, and you can sign up today. 50% off and a 7-day free trial. Come and join us on there. But we're going to move back to the topic, of course, the situation.
I was going to say, I found what I was looking about. Talking about Israel isolates coronavirus antibody in significant breakthrough. So basically, they managed to. Basically, they're getting closer. Is what I'm reading.
I think the issue is, though, with as much as technology's moved on, sadly, vaccines take a long time to get cleared to go in shops. That's the only problem. Into hospitals and stuff.
I mean, there we go. Well, 650,000 people die of flu per year, and no one hears anything of it.
This all ties back to what Paul said. Coconuts kill more people than sharks do. But sharks get all the publicity. Unbelievable.
Very fair point on that one. We're going to go to a different league now. Of course, we've talked about Italy, we've talked about France, we talked very briefly about England. I want to talk about Spain, because Spain is one of the countries that has kind of kept quiet, but brought out a little bit of news quite recently that La Liga, of course, they are getting underway with training very shortly. In fact, you'll have seen pictures today, probably on social media, of Barcelona players going in just to have health checks and things like that. And a piece actually came out yesterday from SD Ibar, which I had read through it, and it was very interesting. They fear terrible consequences of the Liga resuming because of coronavirus. They basically said they're afraid to start an activity in which we cannot reach the minimum recommendation of the experts. They want guarantees of no situation coming out of hand before the league even starts again, which is understandable. I mean, this is a quote from somebody that works at the club. They said, "We love football and nothing makes us happier than being able to get together and make people happy. Without football, we feel empty, how our stands are, sadly. We defend a badge that represents thousands of people and nothing will be the same without them. The spectacle loses its essence. We're privileged, we enjoy training and playing each minute. That's why we want to play. But before footballers, we are people, and it's a big part of society. We're worried about the health situation. It's true that thousands of workers have returned to their jobs with a lot less attention and health measures than us. Many are without any basic guarantees. It is not fair, and we know it. We are very lucky. We are afraid to start an activity in which we cannot reach the minimum recommendation of the experts, physical distancing. It unsettles us that for what we're doing, what we like most, we could get infected, infect our families and friends, and even contribute to a new outbreak of the pandemic with terrible consequences that would have for the population. The most important thing should be everyone's health, and at this moment that this idea comes to fore with facts and not only with words. Only with this clear premise would it make sense to return to the competition. We want guarantees, we demand responsibility. Big statement.
Yeah, they're kind of, I doubt they'll be returning to training anytime soon, but I do get what they mean, because it is hard to social distance when you're all training next to each other. And you've seen teams play, if they're doing small games, you can't really tackle someone if you've got to stay 2 meters away.
And unfortunately, even if you do, we've seen pictures of the Bundesliga, of course, being back in training. Even if you are doing training with social distancing, when it comes to a game, you can't do that. It's physically impossible.
Exactly.
I was wondering, I feel like the only players that could train are keepers, just because they're always wearing gloves. So if they put a mask on, they're all right. In the training coach, put masks and put gloves on, they're all set. But with other players, you can't, because you're going to have to tackle, like you said. You're going to have to be up close, passing and stuff.
And that's the thing. I mean, of course, you can train while doing social distancing. That's no problem. But when it comes to a game, it makes the social distancing in training look incredibly pointless, because you're going to be in close proximity to each other anyway. You know, they're not going to have this rule of you've got to be 2 meters away from each other, because it would just ruin the game in general. And it had never happened, quite frankly, even in a pandemic. So it's a case of how they've had to change their training schemes and schedules up to accommodate to the fact that you've got to be so far away from each other and kind of doing training on your own in a certain way. It changes a lot of things.
It does. I'm just because obviously the briefing's still going on for the UK, and just more things that have come out have said there have been 649 more deaths of people who tested positive for it. We want to ensure appropriate and safe social distancing so people have the confidence to get back to work. He adds that local economies will need a plan to restart and recover. Ministers will work to create more room in town centres as social distancing continues, and the government wants infrastructure and construction to begin again. Like, is football essential? Is what I'm going to try to say here. For us, yes.
I think no. I think it's essential in lifting the nation's mood and that, but it's not essential in terms of. It's not essential in terms of we need it. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
It's a form of entertainment.
We can live without it.
Yeah, no, it's very similar to, somebody who's maybe a cinema buff. They can't go to the cinema, but if you take the cinema away from them, they'll not be happy, but they can live without it. It's just a form of entertainment that we watch. Similar to somebody who watches, unfortunate to say this, a shit show like Love Island. We all hate it, and there'll be so many people out there that will hate football as much as we hate Love Island. But it's their entertainment, do you know what I mean? You take it away from them, they can still live life without it, and it works the same way with football.
Speaking of
has been cancelled.
Thankfully, and hopefully it gets cancelled forever.
No, right. I'm going to stand up for Love Island here. Absolute dog shit show. Got a great theme, and it is entertaining.
Geordie Shaw, isn't it?
It is trash TV. Like, Geordie Shaw is a dog shit show, but it's entertaining.
Just
I need some backup, Kieran, now.
On the form of entertainment.
I agree. I think it's absolutely crap.
According to the Times Sport, almost the entire remaining Premier League and Championship games will be televised.
Yeah.
But here's what the problem is, and this is because of news sources. It comes back to the point we said earlier. The problem is the news sources, because one news source here is saying Championship games will be televised and Premier League games will be televised, while another source came out 2 hours ago saying apparently the EFL was going to get scrapped for the rest of the season. You can't read into stories much without believing them. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the bad thing about the the media in general. The idea of the Bundesliga, of course, having rumoured to be coming back over the last couple of weeks, they've been hyping it up, saying German government officials have been talking and it could be back on May the 9th. And like now it's official and they have been given the green light. They're all saying, oh, it'll be back on this specific day. And, we showed a news piece a couple of weeks ago that BT had apparently already agreed a deal to show the Bundesliga 3:00 games. We talked about that, I think, only about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you think to yourself, it really doesn't help that the media has spurred on all these stories, not just in football, but with the coronavirus in general, to amass fear, to amass false hope, false excitement. They play people like puppets, and it works a charm.
Well, this is the problem. People read something and take it as gospel truth straight away. Look, some people like to delve in and they do the research and stuff. And I'm not going to get into. Look at just coronavirus in general, not even just in England and sports. The origin. People are reporting different things about where it came from and how it happened. You can't pinpoint what's true when you're constantly being thrown smoke and mirrors about what other people. Basically, the fight with the media always is they want clicks, they want you to buy their newspaper, and they want you to read their stuff. Some people don't look true. Facebook is horrific.
Facebook's the worst. Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with coronavirus. I saw someone share a post the other day saying there's 3 missing dogs. The post was from 2015. They've either been found or they haven't.
Well, that's the thing. You look at the
right, lads, I'm going to go find them dogs.
You look at the age demographics. I know we're going into a very extensive debate and going further out of coronavirus, but take the example of KFC doing a giveaway on Facebook and apparently giving away 10 buckets to random people. It's horseshit. It's fake, and usually it has a link that you click on, which will send you to a website that's been poorly made and just looks like shit. They'll have just shitty pictures on there. They can't spell properly, but people still fall for it. You see thousands and thousands of people click on it, share it to their mates, tag their friends in it, and you think to yourself, you are quite thick as pig shit to not look at the profile and see this is a KFC account that's probably got 5 likes on it.
Yeah,
it's the same with the media. It's the way the media works, and unfortunately, it will always be like that. No matter whether this coronavirus incident goes on for a couple of months or not.
But Mackey's is back
in 13 places.
15.
I was going to say, Luton got like 7 shops. What's that all about?
It's an airport, I'm telling you.
It's crazy, isn't it? Chris, what's about people dying and some people more bothered about this Love Island being cancelled? Should be cancelled completely. A lot of garbage, just my opinion. Safe to say we've started a debate in the chat with Love Island because Benaldo disagrees and said, I love Love Island.
In fairness, if you think about it, it's the same. Like, people that love Love Island probably hate football and don't think it should come back.
I tell you what, I went into college, to my surprise, everyone bloody loved it. I'm talking men, women, I'm talking older men, older women, younger men, younger women. I don't know how it's reached the demographic it has.
It's trash TV.
To be fair,
fun.
It's a bit like Big Brother back in the day. And I did enjoy a bit of Big Brother back in the day.
If you think about, look at I'm a Celebrity. I'm a Celebrity is more or less the same premise, yet it's just full of celebrities.
To be fair, they both involve eating.
Everyone loves something, that's why.
But,
It's Sterling's funny.
Yeah, no, the only good thing that's come out is Ian Sterling streaming on Twitch. But less of that.
Coming out of that, he was on CBBC with Hacker the Dog.
But yeah, that was even before Love Island. But we'll move on to the last league to really talk about. We talked about the Premier League quite a bit, of course. We had the good news today. The Bundesliga, as far as it is aware, they've been given government approval to come back. Approval to come back within the second half of May. Of course, in Germany, they've had football suspended since mid-March. They've had over 150,000 people infected with it. Only 6,300 have died. Not saying only as in, fantastic situation for 6,300 people have died, but it's a very small number compared to the rest of the world. This could be one of the first big leagues to come back, and it's not just the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga 2 is supposed to be coming back as well at the same time. Of course, it's without spectators. It'll be behind closed doors. We've been talking about it for a little bit of a while now, about TV in general. It comes back to this idea. This is great publicity for the Bundesliga. humongous publicity. They will be the first big league if things do go well to come back
on that first match. Imagine how many views they're going to get on that first game that's televised.
Well, the thing is, I know this is branching out even further, but take a sporting network like BN Sports, a massive television industry in France. Big industry. They've just lost Ligue 1 for the horses, and they'll have lost hundreds of millions of pounds. Would this not be a great opportunity for them to now pick up the Bundesliga, show it in France, give it a bit more publicity? It's like pretty much, it sounds bad, but the Bundesliga could hit a gold mine in the coronavirus situation.
You profit off other people's misfortunes.
Exactly, that's the perfect way to put it.
Look at a funeral home, a funeral thing. They are profiting. They're making money off people's misfortune. Yet it works for them. That's how they get their income. This is how the Bundesliga will get their income.
Exactly, and I think that is the best way you could put it, to be honest. I don't think anybody could put it any better. Bundesliga clubs have been in training since April 7th, so they've well and truly been underway for quite a while now. Of course, April 7th, they were one of the only big leagues in the world to still be doing remotely any training. And they only really had 2 or 3 weeks when nothing was going on and players were behind closed doors. As you can see on the screen, the Bundesliga's General Assembly, it'll be held on Thursday in Frankfurt. They'll be discussing the health and safety protocol on how to ensure the league's safe return, as well as a start date and match calendar in that same meeting. So we might not hear exactly the date tomorrow, but we should hopefully hear it in the next couple of days, if not by the beginning of next week.
Just speak on the match calendar. I'm pretty sure that when they come back, I'm pretty sure it's Dortmund and Schalke.
Yeah, it's Dortmund, Schalke, Leipzig, Freiburg, Frankfurt, Mönchengladbach, Leverkusen, Bremen, Berlin, Hoffenheim, Paderborn, Dusseldorf, Augsburg, Wolfsburg, Cologne, Mainz, Union Berlin, Bayern Munich.
Good game.
No matter what game there, every game is big for every club.
Every game will be covered by the
Dusseldorf,
Sports Corner.
Paderborn. Oh, what a game.
Everyone will be watching those games. And I mean, even BT have been like advertising stuff about it. It's crazy.
I did have a question. Because obviously they've had a bit of a break. What team do you think is going to come back and sort of have a bit more of not a shocking season, but like a surprise of like, they've gone and beaten this return. So how many games are left of?
There's 9 games left to play in the Bundesliga.
Like, if there's any team that you think could have a surprise, like for me, I think it's going to be Borussia Dortmund. Jadon Sancho's grown a beard.
Yes,
Haaland's had more time to adjust to Germany. Hakimi's had a kid.
He's been inside.
Personally,
I don't know.
I think Werder Bremen. I think Werder Bremen, they'll have had a lot of time off. They've had a lot of injuries that came through that should have cleared. Like their big goalkeeper, Pavlenka, you'll know him, of course, on FIFA for being high rated. Most people know him for that. But he got injured just before the season kind of stopped, and he should be back. And I think a couple of other players should be back. I do think, if anything, I think Werder Bremen will escape relegation. Personally,
I think Munich. I think Munich are going to run away with title.
Do you think? I mean, Kieran Al, you seem in a position where you don't know who to pick here.
I am. I was going to be honest. I'm going to go with Schalke because they drifted away before this break started, and I think they needed a break to sort of get back to the form they were showing earlier in the campaign. And now they've had the little break. I think they won't win the league, but I think they'll put a fight for top 4.
I suppose the only bad thing about Schalke is they're already 10 points behind 5th place, Leverkusen.
The 10 points behind. Fuck that.
Yeah, it's a long way to go for them. But there's still 9 games, still all to play for. I mean, realistically, we could sit here and say that.
Now they're in.
Well, realistically, Roman was saying Marseille had a chance to win the title. So anything goes on this podcast. Unfortunately, Ligue 1, the actual federation, killed your bet off, Rowan.
Rigged. Absolutely rigged. They listened to the podcast and heard I had that going and thought, well, we've got to end it now. We've got to end it.
They didn't even acknowledge the choice of starting the season. They watched the video and went, end it. Get it on.
Rowan said that.
Because Marseille, you put a bet on, they cancelled the league. Love Island, the loves it, they've cancelled it.
The A-League, when we did the bet on the what was it? The Melbourne Hyundai, yeah.
It was the West Sydney FC versus West
Sydney FC. That's the one.
Which was due to get the double, and it got cancelled. And then he went and scored. He went and scored 1 goal or whatever it did. I predicted everything right, and I was shafted.
Tell you what, every time we predict this stuff, something always seems to go wrong in terms of gets cancelled. The game against PSG in Monaco, we predicted that got called off as well.
Yeah, I remember.
Just stop predicting.
Tell you what,
things
ever since we've started, things seem to be getting called off a little bit more.
I predict that Bayern Munich are going to win the league by a mile.
Good choice. I like that one.
Hey, still time.
Come on, Dortmund.
They could win all 9 games and absolutely fly. Chris Welch says, bring football back completely, cancel this Love Island first date's garbage, be best day of my life. There really is a debate in this chat about Love Island.
I am not having him I can understand Love Island, not first dates. First dates is a lovely, wholesome show with Fred, the lovely French bearded man. It's just 2 people going on a date. It's not as slaggy as Love Island. I
think it's one of them, right? You either love the stuff like Love Island, that new one on Netflix, Too Hot to Handle. You can have everything, but you're on an island with one of the hottest people ever.
But you're not allowed to have sex.
Exactly. Rubbish telly, but people love it. People buy into it.
It's amazing.
It's a weird world we live in. I mean, a great way to end this debate is what Will put to Benaldo. They've been absolutely chatting big time about Love Island ever since we brought it up. Will Pete put Benaldo. Love Island is basically a load of steadheads going after girls that spend their life savings on implants. Then they cry for no reason. Shite, basically. Absolutely hit the nail on the head. Spot on there. And Benaldo, they've agreed. I bet it is, Will. We have an agreement in the chat. There we go. Well done, guys. We've got to an agreement.
Hold up, I just saw Benaldo. We've never seen Love Island. I've never seen Love Island. We don't have that in the USA. You do have it in the USA. You have Love Island USA. Now, that is bad. Like Love Island, it's got entertaining. People are having views. Love Island USA, I'm about to diss the Americans, I am. It's just not entertaining. There's no inner fuse. There's not people going after the same girl. It's dog. When the Americans try to replicate an English show, it just doesn't work. The IT crowd... What was
in between us?
The in between us. God, Love Island USA. There's been plenty. You could have making your own shows.
I guess the only one you could say is The Office in terms of
that was a good one.
Being good.
It wasn't the same.
But if you ever watch Shameless as well, they did it pretty good in the US.
Skins. They tried to remake Skins, just didn't have the same effect. You could have making your own shows though. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, How I Met Your Mother, New Girl, all great comedy shows. They fit the American humour. Friends, we won't talk about that.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory.
I'm not having that. I like Big Bang Theory.
I like Big Bang Theory as well.
There we go. Benaldo has put, by the way, I think the last weekly breakdown I predicted 17 yellow cards in that heated derby. It was the Turkish game, wasn't it? It was going to be Besiktas Galatasaray. And now it'll be 0 with this distance. Big Ryan Donk. But yeah, no, I think we've gone on quite a bit of a big debate there.
Missed one more comment because he said if we ever did a US version of Mrs. Brown Boys at EastEnd as a flop. First of all, Mrs. Brown Boys. There we go. It's come up now. Mrs. Brown Boys just isn't good. It's good for men that are over the age of 50 who think and EastEnders. How would it wouldn't work? You don't have the greatness of London.
I can't agree it's going to work, but I think we've gone on quite a debate.
Chicago
overall.
PD though. Chicago PD,
Rowan,
Chicago Med, and Chicago Fire, all great shows.
Chicago Fire's a good club, by the way, and MLS as well. Well, apparently they won the World Cup one time, didn't they? Chicago Fire, back in the day when Banshees Schweigstein. Can you remember that when he was asked the question, are you going to do the World Cup with Chicago Fire? Crazy. But I think we've had a very good debate on the coronavirus situation in general. I think that is one of the great ways to end the show. Now, next week, the way it's going to work next week is we're going to wait on the date of when the Bundesliga comes back. If the date is, I would say, if we're going to have the date and it comes back on the 22nd, we will have a podcast next week on the 13th of May. If it comes back on the 29th, we're going to take a week's break. I'm going to get a lot of facts and things wrote down. And then the week after, we will come back all fresh and ready to go to do our Bundesliga first episode covering the big games. Fingers crossed it's the 22nd, but something's telling me the 29th.
Someone from The Athletic did an article, and it's a possibility that it could come back as early as next week, the 15th.
If it comes back as early as next week and the 15th, then that is absolutely perfect. We'll have a show on the 13th. So keep your eyes out on Twitter. If you haven't got us on Twitter already, it's at @the_top corner. I highly suggest checking it out. I'll keep you up to date on the YouTube channel as well. So I'll put out an update video so you guys know when we go live with the video, of course. But if it comes back as early as you're saying next weekend, even perfect, we'll have an episode for you. But keep your eyes out on the channel. You don't want to miss it. Of course, as always, we've got plenty more content to come on the channel. Quick heads up for you guys. The NFL Corner is not on Thursday this week. It's on Friday. Kieran, you can tell us more about that one.
I can indeed. We don't have a set time we go live. Apparently, we no longer have a set day we go live because now we're on Friday. But this is because tomorrow night in American time, they're releasing the schedule in terms of, like a fixture release in terms of football. So we thought we'd react to that the day after because that makes sense rather than leaving it a week and kind of the news has died down by that point. So we'll be going through the fixtures, and depending on how long we want the episode to be, we might do another division preview as well. We'll see how we're looking in terms of time.
So absolutely stocked up. Loads of content. Loads of content. We'll see it. And of course, Rowan, yesterday you put up a shorter edition of the Wrestling Corner based on Money in the Bank 2020 predictions. Have you got any plans for next week?
Well, yeah, it's Money in the Bank. So obviously, Money in the Bank is happening this Sunday. It's going to be very entertaining, I'm hoping. But we'll have on Tuesday, me and Sam will be reviewing the whole pay-per-view. And obviously, all the regular shows. Probably a bit longer episode just because of we didn't have one last week, so we might mention some stuff we missed. But yeah, we'll be reviewing Money in the Bank 2020.
Who did you say was going to win?
We both, I think, Sam went AJ and Shayna. I went Asuka and AJ, I think.
Kieran D. I'm going with Alistair Black. Kieran D. don't even know he's in it.
Corbin. Baron Corbin.
But there you go.
Oh,
That is the Wrestling Corner. If you want to check out that episode, it was put up yesterday. It's a shorter edition. It's only about 15 to 20 minutes long. Well worth a watch if you're looking forward to Money in the Bank 2020. And of course, you can keep your eyes out on twitch.tv as well. If you're looking for a bit of FIFA gameplay, pack openings, League SBC grind, twitch.tv/the top corner. Live every day apart from Wednesday. We've got some pack grinding to do on tomorrow's stream. But thank you ever so much for everybody who's joined in this show. You've given us loads of comments and questions throughout this coronavirus debate. But I'll put cheers, lads. You've all been doing a great job in these times of quarantine. Great determination. It's greatly, greatly appreciated, Benaldo. And Chris Welch, take care, lads. Catch up on even more government lies they've been chucking us. So, well, doesn't sound good, Chris, on that side. But honestly, thank you ever so much for everyone that's joined. Hopefully, we'll see you next week. Fingers crossed on the Bundesliga. You'll see me dancing around going, I'm so excited. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
See you later.
Yeah.